Hey, you want to drag, huh? Rev it up.
Action you've never seen races across your screen as you thrill to a new dimension in picture making. Carnival of Souls. This is the shocking story of a who crawled from the river to race through a nightmare, walking a tightrope between heaven and hell. From the unreal, she crashes through to reality. But try as she will to lead a normal life, she is torn from her goal. There's no privacy in a life she's ever watched, tormented. Either it's her neighbor, desirous of her physically, watching her with his leering eye, or it's the evil eye of the man who taunts her, the man who wants her. From the bottom of the river they come. They reach for her. They demand that she dance with them at the Carnival of Souls. She is a girl driven mad by the relentless forces of the beyond. He will not relent as he comes for her again and again. She whirls between the real and the unreal, trying to cling to life.
I like being with you, really I do. I don't want to be alone tonight. I want to be near you.
Honey, you don't want to go in there all by yourself, do you?
But she must watch herself in death. She must dance at the Carnival of Souls held just for her. For they have come for her for the last time, claiming her as one of their own. Carnival of Souls arouses such emotion that the management has been forced to state positively no refunds. Carnival of Souls is the shocker of all time, guaranteed to sweep you into a new dimension of picture making. You can't afford to miss Carnival of Souls.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, horror hounds of all ages, welcome to the Black Sunday Tapes Classic Horror, where each episode we'll be diving into cinema's best cult horror films. And with that said, what gem are we diving into this week, Michael?
We have decided to start with Carnival of Souls, which I feel is something that many people have heard of and very, very few have actually seen.
Agreed. I think a lot of people will have seen like many films that were influenced by Carnival of Souls.
And images from Carnival of Souls.
And
no
images from Carnival of Souls, you're right. Yeah. So dive in, my friend. When did you discover Carnival of Souls and when did you fall in love with it?
So I actually didn't fall in love with it until I watched it this time, but we'll get into that a little bit. But the short version is I'm a collector because my father is a collector, and by collector you should infer that I mean hoarder. And he would pick up the cheapest sets with the most of any genre that he could. So we had, like, when I was a kid, I grew up listening to radio dramas, so which is one of the reasons I love storytelling as much as I love storytelling. And so similarly, when Walmart had 50 horror movies and 50 sci-fi movies for a total of $12.50, he was like, I will take that. And
you can't exactly.
You can't, because even if you get like 2 gems and a bunch of garbage, you still got 2 gems for $12.50. And there's an interesting thing with rights and public domain, where movies that you had no idea were public domain, anybody can put out. So you can get a copy of Night of the Living Dead and a copy of House on Haunted Hill and a copy of Nosferatu and a copy of Metropolis, all in this one set. And so through one of those, I had access to Carnival of Souls, and I just didn't watch it until maybe I want to say maybe like 10 years ago. And when I watched it, the quality of the film, the look of the film, the quality of the visuals I was looking at, I was like, okay, so I get why people like this movie, and I can see that it has influence because I mean, we're going to get into specifics later, but just the long shots and the desolation of one person walking through nothing is just all over horror from the movie, when that movie came out, through today. And cut to the other night, I'm watching it for this discussion, and I find an HD copy of it. And I went from going like, okay, like I get it, to like, oh, this is gorgeous. I would actually love to see this in a theater. Like the
Yeah.
clarity of the image was next level. Like it was shot in 61, and yeah, I mean it looks like it was shot in 61, but it also is impressively clear, like reflections of water above things that are you're looking under the water. Anyway, we'll get to that, but yeah. I think I got too long-winded. I hope that made sense.
No, makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. My story is quite similar actually. I discovered it on late night telly, as you did back in the day, and
Yeah.
no idea what it was, but I had in my early teen years, had a fascination with old school, not just old school horror, to be fair, old school cinema, and yeah, would just dive on top of anything that would come along. And Carnival of Souls was one of those films, and we'll get into the influences in a bit, but I had seen some of the films I feel were influenced, and in doing some research, I think films that were definitely influenced by Carnival of Souls, I had seen them films first. So
Like most, yeah.
exactly. So, going into Carnival of Souls, I wasn't, the first time I watched it, I wasn't really aware of when it was made. So I actually thought it was the other way around. So I
Okay.
watched it
Okay.
going, oh, okay, this is taken from this, and this is taken from this. And yeah, it isn't until you go back and you realize, holy shit, like no one really knows of this film. Or like you said, may have heard of it, but haven't watched it. And this influenced a lot,
Oh
like
yeah.
a lot. And
Like you love movies that were touched by this movie.
oh, exactly. And for this is a true independent film,
Yeah.
handful of cast and crew. Um,
Guerrilla filmmaking at its finest.
yeah, it really was guerrilla filmmaking at its finest, and it just is one of those films that if you haven't seen it, go out, find it, watch it. If you have seen it, but maybe like both of us have watched an older version, I've recently brought the Criterion Blu-ray, which is stunning. It's a really, really stunning film. It's an odd film.
Yeah,
It is a
very.
strange film. It's look right there are parts that are really, really well made. There are parts that do not work. There is some
Okay.
really bad
Let's just say it
dubbing.
doesn't hold up well contemporarily in terms of
No,
the culture of the film.
there's some really bad dubbing at the start. Did
Oh
you
yeah.
notice that on the bridge?
Well, not just
Some of that,
that, but like later on when they had to do just a complete the last chunk of the movie was just all MOS. So there's like thump thump
yeah,
thump 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 thump.
yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah. But what I will say is it really adds to this film. It has this
Yeah, absolutely.
incredible dreamlike feel to it. It has this incredible way of presenting itself, which those less than how can I put it? That the technical aspects that are not up to scratch, they really add to this overall otherworldly kind of film. Yeah, it's that there's just so it's one of those films that the more you go back, the more you discover. For myself as a filmmaker, it's one of those films that has influenced a lot of what I've done. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, if you've seen some of my short films, you'll see a
Which you
little
need
bit
to
of
look those up, people.
Carnival of Souls in a few
Yeah.
of them. But yeah, man, it really, really is one of those films that I just think you have to go back every couple of years, revisit, and like you will have a fucking good time. You will have a really, really good time with it.
And a new experience each if you're one of those that looks at more than just what
Yeah,
is presented to you. Exactly. Yeah. It's it's something that I feel really needs to be taken as a whole, because you're like if you want to nitpick, there's all kinds of stuff you can nitpick, but I mean, like, come on, Citizen Kane has fucking pterodactyls in it, for Christ's sake. But like, you know you need to try to let go and let the dream happen. And I don't know, man, we're
oh
we're
yeah,
we're,
no,
we're
of
we're
course, man.
about to get deep into it, so
No film is perfect. No film is perfect. No franchise is perfect. And
yeah, nah.
looking back, it's important to remember that. But yeah, I tell you what. So before we dive in deep, we've kind of sold the film a little bit now.
I think so.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so Michael, give us a little bit of a rundown on what the film is about without spoiling it for those that haven't seen it.
Right, because the last thing I'll say to try to sell you is the thing that finally made my girlfriend cave and go, fine, I'll watch it, is I'm not saying you're not going to figure out where the movie's going while you're watching the movie, but it is the first instance that I can point to of a specific kind of gotcha. I really don't know of one like it before it,
Yeah,
and it has been done a gajillion times since
since
1962,
yeah.
but I don't know about prior.
But yeah, and
So
what I will say on that is from the first viewing, I knew exactly where this was going, and it
yeah,
did not change my viewing
enjoyment. Yeah,
experience or my enjoyment in the slightest. In fact, something I've said multiple times over the last few years is that there are a lot of stories and a lot of films that you know exactly where they're going, and it's about building that film to have such an experience that it doesn't matter that you know where it's going. And my opinion of that comes from Carnival of Souls.
there
I
it
knew
is.
exactly where it was going. If you guess where it's going, the viewing experience isn't ruined in the slightest. It's just a different viewing experience.
Absolutely. Okay, so I guess the short version is a couple of friends are hanging out in a car, and this other car pulls up next to them and says, "Hey, y'all, we should drag race." And they drag race, things go a little south, and they crash. And then the movie proper starts. And the
Yes.
movie proper is a nightmarish dream world that a woman is existing in and trying to figure out how to maneuver and exist within. Is, I think, the best way I can describe
Yeah,
it.
I think that sells it for me. Yeah, without giving too much away. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
exactly. Without giving too much away. Yeah.
probably one of the greatest examples of that nightmarish world, dreamlike state. You don't really get uh, a lot of films that bring that dreamlike state, that nightmarish world to the forefront like Carnival of Souls does. It really, really feels like a dream. It really feels like it's a form of reality, but not reality. If you
Okay.
understand what I mean. Yeah,
I think I'm getting you. I think I'm getting you. Yeah, yeah.
it really, really stands out for me on that front. And I believe the reason for that, in my opinion, is the lead actress,
Oh yeah.
Candice
Yeah.
Hilagos. Am I saying that right?
Candice Hilligoss is, I believe, how it is pronounced.
Yeah, it's Candice Hilagos. She is incredible.
Agreed.
And it doesn't matter how many times I watch this film. Her performance is outstanding, and she is a standout performance in a film of very strange performances. Very strange performances.
Because a lot of them
Um,
came from theater, and maybe they were trying to theater act. But yeah, that's
and some of them are not
I get
actors at
that.
all. Some of
And
them are
all
not
in all,
actors at
yeah.
all. There's some really wooden acting,
Oh yeah.
especially the start of the film is. But from what I could find out, is most of them people are not actors. They're just locals that they found while they were filming, um, and they all come from the Kansas area, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So they wasn't actors.
There was a little bit of it shot in Salt Lake, but yeah, most of it's in Kansas. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it is that idea of it just adds to this really otherworldly, nightmarish scenario. I think the other standout performance in the film for me was Sydney Berger as the really, really creepy.
I was about a skeevy guy across the hall. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like he is the biggest fucking creep
As
in the
Ebert
world.
called him, the quintessential nerd in Lust.
Yes, he is creepy as hell. Um, but what's interesting about Carnivore Souls and his performance in particular is before Carnivore Souls, that character, that kind of creepy guy lusting after, the main girl.
Mhm.
That's in a lot of films. You see that in a lot of places. Sometimes the main character is the creepy guy
Yeah.
lusting after the girl. The difference is you're not meant to like that character in Carnival of Souls. In a lot of earlier films, you were always meant to like that creepy guy.
Yeah.
Where within Carnival of Souls, he's presented, rightfully so, as a creepy fucking dude.
From the
And
jump. Yeah.
yeah, and exactly. And it comes off that way. And it's this really, really interesting performance that adds an extra layer to the overall film. It allows the character of Mary to have some of her best scenes. And yeah, it really, for me,
Agreed. Some of the most
really,
infuriating scenes, but also the best scenes. Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely. But they're meant to be. They're not
Yeah.
infuriating because they're presented in a way where we're meant to like the character and watching it, going, for God's sake, this is a film that was made in the '60s, early '60s, but
I don't care
yeah,
when it was made. I always have an issue with someone's like, "Oh, you hate me. Let me
there
love
you
you
go,
more."
there you go,
Like
there you
I'm
go,
not down.
right? But there's so many films that do that.
Oh
There's so
yeah,
many
yeah, yeah,
films that
yeah.
do that. But this film presented it as, no, this dude's a creep.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
this dude's a creep. He's not likable. You're not meant to like him. He's a creep, And
Yeah.
unfortunately, them guys do exist. But it kind of adds this extra level to the character of Mary. And I feel like touching on that actually. For me, I also noticed that it seems like throughout the film, from the start of the film to the end of the film, Mary is running away or trying to get away or get a point of view across to these overbearing men the whole way
Yeah.
through the film.
Oh yeah.
You've got the guys that obviously challenge him for the car race at the start of the film that she's not into. Then obviously when she climbs out of the water, she is surrounded by men trying to tell her what to do next. And
Quickly and immediately. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And then, the whole way through, you've then got um the minister in the church. You've got Dr. Samuels, I believe his name is,
I believe
who
so.
again is kind of, trying to help her, to be fair, but again, kind of slightly overbearing in the way he's doing it. And there's this really nice would probably be the wrong word, but there's, this really prominent undertone of all these men surrounding this young woman trying to kind of force their opinions on her. And I feel it's this really early example of kind of pushing a female protagonist right to the front of the film in the right way.
Absolutely. Which is
you know
why like you can't get mad at some of the some of the stuff that socially isn't going to sit well today. Like one of my notes like later on in the film was like, well, a feminist read is impossible not to see. You've got all that male gaze,
yeah
and then you've got her, trying to exist as a woman in a world unseen, with the, why won't anyone hear
yeah
me
yeah
and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like it is impossible to not see that. It's not like something you have to try to read. It is implicit in what you are being presented.
Completely agree. And I really do feel a lot of that is down to Candice Hilagos's performance.
The first scene that really sort of like perked me up in terms of like the cinematography of it was the scene with where she first sits down at the giant pipe organ
Yeah, oh,
because
this is the so hold on. Let's just
go
touch
ahead.
on the cinematography, right? The
The cinematography
cinematography,
is the cinematography and the score to me are share the
yes,
second lead of the film.
yes, completely agree. The cinematography of this is incredible in terms of, again, you might never have seen this film. You have seen shots from this film in other films.
And
This
video
is
games. There's all
and
kinds of Resident
video
Evil
games
camera
and
angles.
everything.
Like
Oh, it's incredible. There are so many for a independent film that was made for virtually no money to look this damn good. That's super impressive.
right.
Super impressive. And yeah, to touch on the score, my God, that score will live with you from the first time you watch it through to the 100th time you watch it. That
It's
score,
discordant, it's unsettling, it does exactly what it's supposed to do to you. Yeah.
it really does. And it may not be, but I want to say it is completely composed with one instrument.
I mean, it's definitely the one instrument that comes to the foreground,
Yeah, I'm
but
pretty sure
yeah,
it's just with one instrument. And even if there's a few other bits in there that I'm missing, the fact that it kind of is that simple but has this really beautiful complex nature to it as well.
most
Again,
definitely.
it's little parts like that that elevate this film above and beyond other independent horror films that were coming out around the same time.
Definitely.
And you want to capture like lightning in a bottle. That score, the cinematography, all adds to this atmosphere. It all adds to this, to this incredible world building.
Absolutely. The fact that like we've mentioned the cinematography as many times as we have already in this podcast, the fact that in my notes the word cinematography probably pops up, I don't know, a dozen times. Like talking about its influence. I know we're going to delve a little deeper, but I mean, Night of the Living Dead looks like this movie. Like one of my notes was, oh, so here we are just drawn to this bridge like it's Silent Hill. Like all the video games, both of the movies. We won't talk about the second Silent Hill movie, but they all share the influence of the fog and the creepy desolation of a place that should have a bunch of humanity and has nothing.
For me, you cannot watch this film and not see Night of the Living Dead. Towards the end of the film, there is a scene on the beach that is incredibly Night of the Living Dead. There's a lot
just because you said near the end of the film, like right as soon as she comes up upon the like the first scene of her coming up over the ridge and towards the carnival, as it were. Like my note was, this is just the opening scene of every zombie film ever. Like you don't have the look of what we think of desolation without this movie, it would appear.
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
No. I couldn't have said it better myself. Like honestly, that is Night of the Living Dead before Night of the Living Dead.
Like 6 years or so, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a massive Night of the Living Dead fan. I really am. I love.
It's hard
Night of
not
the
to
Living
be if you like horror.
Dead. Exactly, but this it's crazy how close it is, and it's crazy how influential this film is, yet does not stand anywhere near the level of Night of the Living Dead in most people's minds, right? Like everyone knows Night of the Living Dead. Everyone's
and
got
pretty
a
much
Night of the
everybody
Living Dead
has
t-shirt.
seen Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, everyone's seen it. Everyone's got the DVD. Everyone's got the Blu-ray. Everyone's got the t-shirt. No one, for the most part, has seen Carnival of Souls.
That's what
I've
seriously one of
spoke
my
to a
notes.
few people over the years. I spoke to a few people over the years that have seen it. But for the most part, it's always, oh yeah, I've heard that. I've been meaning to check that out.
Yeah, it's on my list. That's why like I really like I just want to cosplay as one of the ghouls, but like nobody would get it.
Well, even that though, like how influential has that become?
For real
Like
though.
that look, they are the Night of the Living Dead zombies.
And anytime you need to do a cheap, weird looking ghosty type thing, you just go to there.
Exactly. It's incredible. So, all right, I threw my one out there. What other influences have you seen Carnival of Souls in?
It's flat out said Carrie. Like De Palma was like a lot of the way that he set the camera, the influences on his lighting choices, the framing of certain things were all, if not direct homages, heavily inspired by Carnival of Souls. Yeah, I mean you can see a lot of it like in some of the large scale destruction where he just lets the camera go all the way back, like the scene in Carnival of Souls when they go to what at the time was the world's largest dance floor, like the scene when all the ghouls are like waltzing and stuff. That that could hold 2,000 couples and 2 orchestras. It was the largest in the world until it was completely washed away when the Salt Lake decided to swallow it up one day.
So for those that haven't seen the film, the kind of centerpiece of this film is this huge, almost Russian-looking amusement park area that is it's just kind of like out in
It was an
the
amusement
Salt
park
Lakes,
called
isn't it?
the Salt Air.
Yeah, and it was obviously at the time of filming abandoned. But yeah, from what I researched, like it went through an incredible history. Like it was burned down like 3 or 4 times.
Exactly.
It was rebuilt again, and then
It,
obviously,
it,
like
it was
you
it was
said,
like
the
that
Salt
castle
Lake
in the
swallowed it up.
swamp in Monty Python, my
Yeah,
friend. It just kept going down.
there's just this incredible history around the main location in the film, um, the making of the film, and why they chose it. I mean, I say about just driving through. Apparently, that's how the director Herc Harvey discovered this place. He was just
I was
driving by.
just about to say,
Right.
I watched an interview with him, and he said that the way it happened was he happened to be driving just near it, saw it way off in the distance, went over, felt the area, knew immediately he had to use it somehow, took a bunch of pictures, showed it to the guy who was a writer, and was like, we need to do something with this.
Right.
And then they wrote the movie.
It's just such an incredible story. And I feel like that is why it was a great choice to kick off this podcast. I think if there's anything we
Agreed.
want to do with this, it's to touch on the classics that we feel have influenced cinema, but maybe a lot of people haven't seen. So if you've got a bit of time and you want to dive into cinema's past, Carnival of Souls. That's the the first film we recommend.
Did you know there's a missing reel?
I heard, yeah. Was it a processing problem?
Yeah, they overexposed it when they were
Right.
processing it. Yeah, but he and so the Herc Harvey was saying that if it had to happen, at least it happened to something that wasn't integral to the story. But he was very impressed
What
with
was
it
it? Do you know what it?
So Herc Harvey was saying that it was a really visually to him impressive scene that took place just before the giant dance hall sequence we were talking about, where if you look just to the left of that dance hall, because the dance hall was essentially like a raised platform in the middle of the Salton Sea, or not the Salton Sea, in the Salt Lake, and if you looked away from it and out into the lake, there were a bunch of pylons, and he had a bunch of ghouls done up standing behind the pylons, and then he photographed it in a way so that it looked like the pylons had started to move, and then it became clear that it was the ghouls, and they came onto the dance floor.
Oh,
That's
interesting.
And he said like he loved the shot. He knew he had something great, but I mean in the grand scheme, at least it didn't affect the story. So
Yeah, and they do have other shots that are similar
yeah,
in the film. So yeah, I
yeah,
don't think it's something that's overly lost. But yeah, again, it's just another interesting little fact about the film. So wrap this up a little bit and let people
absolutely. Yeah.
let people get out there and hopefully hunt this down and watch it. There's just a few random facts, right, that I found that I find really interesting. So apparently, maybe this is why she unfortunately didn't do too much after the film. But apparently, once the film was made and they screened it, Candice Hilagos's agent watched the film and then rang her afterwards, or sent her a letter afterwards to end their agreement and said that she would no longer represent her because the abomination that this film was. So I
That's
thought
rude. That's rude.
yeah,
That's so rude.
So so I found that really interesting. Another fact that I thought was quite interesting is the at the start of the film, as Michael has already touched on, they have a race and they end up on this bridge, and the girl's car veers off this bridge and crashes. And that was obviously back in the day all done for real.
Oh yeah.
To do that, it cost the director $38, and all the local council required was that the film crew replaced the broken wooden slats that the car drove through. That was it.
And
That's all they
remove the
needed.
car from the lake.
Oh yeah, and remove the car from the lake. Yeah, that was it. That's it. I just find that as a filmmaker, I just find that absolutely amazing that
And
a
that
cancel
repair cost them $12.
yes, that a cancel would say to you, yeah, crash your car off the bridge. That's good. That's good. Just replace the panels afterwards, will you? That would never happen now. That would never happen. I love that. I just love little tiny bits, tiny little bits of information like that of how independent this film really was.
Yeah,
Just
along those lines, I got one more. So, like we were talking about how guerrilla it was. So the scene where Candace is at the department store and just sort of like trying stuff on, they walked into the department store as a film crew, just blazingly went right up the escalators, found one of the clerks and said, "Look, for $25, would you just turn the other way for a little while?" And the clerk was like, "Yeah, sure."
love it. Love it.
And so that's how they got those shots.
That's so good. That's so good. I like. That's just. It's
$25
very,
and
very
62.
rare.
Like, let's be
It's
honest here.
so rare you can get away with that stuff these days. I just love little nuggets of information like that. That's so cool, man.
Stuff
That's so
that
cool. I love
you
that.
can't replicate. Yeah.
So the last little fact I'm going to throw there is really oddly. So Night of the Living Dead is very famous for having no copyright and being in the public domain because they forgot to add the copyright notice on the film's prints when they sent out to cinemas. And very, very strangely, Carnival of Souls is also in the public domain for the exact same reason. So despite despite George A. Romero taking huge influence from this film that was in the public domain because they forgot the copyright notice, he too forgot the bloody copyright notice, of which then resulted in him never ever making any money from Night of the Living Dead. Exactly the same as Herc Harvey from this film.
There you go, man. Even it influenced it in positive and negative ways.
And negative ways, yeah. And negative ways, yeah. Right. Is there anything you want to throw out before we end this glorious first episode?
I mean, there's so many things I could throw out, but let's let's not take up too much of these nice people's times.
Very true. Very true. And with that said, I think it's time to wrap up this glorious first episode. Thank you so much for joining us. We aim to bring you one of these weekly. And until then, stay safe, horror hounds.
Absolutely, folks. Take care of yourselves.
Bye.